not even gonna try and change outfits and makeup between each video I film today. It's my day off. I feel like filming. I'm behind. I'm just gonna chill and get through with it. So I'm back with another review. The book that I read recently and am reviewing today for you is Fallen Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes. This book was sent to me by Penguin Teen in exchange for an honest review, so thank you to anyone who had a hand in that, and thank you if you're watching this right now. This is the first book in a fantasy series that will have, I think, 6 books? I know the 5th one's coming out soon. I don't know if there's one more after that, but there are 4 currently out by the time I'm filming this. This is a high fantasy YA series. This is compared to Game of Thrones, and I wouldn't disagree with that because it follows 3 kingdoms that all are in the same body of land. It follows 3 characters, Jonas, Magnus, and Cleo, and it follows their lives and their kingdoms and their individual struggles. Basically, there's camaraderie between the kingdoms and they're banding to kill each other, and there's a dying sister and plots to get magic back in the land, and it's just a lot happening because there's a lot of characters and a lot of subplots. So yes, I would say it's like Game of Thrones where there's a really big scope and a lot of things happening. I gave this book 3 stars. Let's talk about it. So where to begin? I had mixed feelings about this book. I didn't have high expectations. I think it's a little bit unfair to say it's the YA version of Game of Thrones because Game of Thrones in comparison is so much better. This book was really bland. It wasn't great, it wasn't horrible. Like if you had a scale from horrible to excellent, it would always just be in like the average. So the characters, like I said, there are 3 main characters. Let's just focus on them individually. Cleo's the princess to one of the kingdoms, and I did not like her. She was so whiny, she was so spoiled. I know that that probably lends a lot of credit for her getting character development in future books, but in this one, dang. Shut up. I just couldn't stand her. Like, she was that one character that was like, oh my gosh, we have to fix this. I have to go risk thousands of lives and go do this one thing because it is fate's destiny and I need to be that person. So she would always just do dumb things even though everyone's like, Cleo, no, and she's like, Cleo, yes. And she would be so upset when there were bad effects. She just was not an enjoyable character. I know you might learn to love her in future books, but in this one, I was like, oh. Magnus, on the other hand, my favorite. I think he goes through the most interesting character arc in this book. Magnus is the prince of a different kingdom and he is more reserved and he doesn't like killing people and he's just this nice guy. Great guy. But then by the end of the book, things have happened and he just turns into And I just thought that was so interesting. I love the way that he grew. And then lastly, hair. And then lastly was Jonah, who is just this guy who was trying to avenge his brother's death. I don't even care about him. Like by the end of the book, I was like, is he really considered one of the main characters? Because he was a main commentary I have about the characters in this book is that I actually rejoice Morgan Rhodes on her bravery to put a lot of characters' lives at risk. This is a book where a lot of people die. And I know usually there's like this whole trope of YA where it's like, oh my gosh, all my favorite characters are dead and like it's so sad how my favorite character is always the one to die. But I feel like that's just a little bit wrong because we all know that our main characters are safe. If you read a book about a lovable character, that guy is like not gonna do anything. Unless you're Finnick Odair, you're fine. Killing off main characters is not something that happens a lot no matter how much we might try and talk about it. But in this one, I was truly on the edge of my seat knowing that no one was safe. I mean, our 3 biggies, I was like, okay, whatever. But anyone else, fair game. Even by the end, I was thinking to myself, this is a little over the top, the amount of people that die. Like, did they have to go? Or was that just for a plot twist? However, some of the people that did die, I was like, praise bless, we don't have to deal with them anymore. So it was just fun all around. But I did like that part of it because no other YA fantasy just kills off characters like that. It was refreshing. And again, it just kept me in with it. My main complaint about this book, I thought the pace of it was okay. I was never bored reading this book, but the one thing that hindered my reading experience more than anything else, the writing in this is so plain. I have never read a book before with such bad storytelling. I mean, I've read really horrendous books that have bad grammar and they're just not interesting to read. This is just so bland. Like, okay, let me give you an example. I distinctly remember at the beginning of the book when she was describing things, you know, getting some imagery going. She described the character's hair as, I quote, brownish. Are there no other adjectives in the world to describe hair other than brownish? Not even brown. Brown-ish. What's another example? Oh, describing scenery, she would be like, yeah, there were rocks and grass and trees and it was beautiful. Literally, it was like, it was beautiful. And I was like, this is a New York Times best-selling author and I praise her ability to craft a story, but the execution of it was not pretty. I don't know if that improves over the series. I hope to God it improves over the series, but it was just, there were times when I would just read it and go, this is not a talented writer. Which is mean, kind of, but just the number one thing I noticed was how boring the writing was. I would catch myself reading it and going, really? Because it was just so plain. I don't know, it kept me engaged. It was pretty fun. Nothing about the plot was extraordinary or different. It kind of had that plot where it's like, the magic has left our land and we need one person to get it back. And of course we have like the chosen one who's gotta go do that. I know if I continued the series, they would all be like 3 or 4 star books. So at this point, I'm not interested in continuing onward. Magnus is pretty much the only character who I care about. I don't know if it's even worth it to find out what happens to him. I own the next ones. Maybe I'll proceed with them. Maybe I will find that I could read many different things that would be better than them. But you know, I think it's just an okay book. It just falls in that very category to me. I would say if you were thinking about reading this one, don't buy it full price. Don't buy the entire series. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but if you could find it for like $5 at a used bookstore, maybe. It's just not one that I would consider a good and recommendable YA fantasy. So yeah, that's everything I have to say about this book. Did you guys feel the same way I felt about it? Because I did a poll on Twitter seeing if I should continue with this series, and a lot of people said I don't know if I should continue either because I just thought this book was okay. Like, it wasn't bad, but it also wasn't memorable. So that is everything I have to talk about today. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you're all having a wonderful life, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.